Get ready, Texas. This week, we're on the shorelines, casting at redfish up shallow or by oysters, along with trout lurking in grass beds and cut edges, and a variety of fun fighters offshore, of course.
That's right, Bree. And on the lakes, we have some changing temperatures, moving the bass a little deeper, plus fantastic crappie and catfish bite to discuss here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report, which starts now.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Rick and I are glad to be back with all of your favorite captains and guides, ready to fill your weekend full of fishing fun. But Rick, having dealt with some weather recently, it definitely affects how, what, and where we fish. We've discussed it before, but maybe just reiterate.
So there's two things happening. You know, it's gotten a little cooler in the morning, those cooler water temperatures. So in the middle part or even the upper fresh region, it's a big deal. But guess what? Off the coast now, they've got a storm that's going by, and it's pushing in a lot of that big, pretty green water that Bink talks about. So a lot of those marshes are going to flood. So I can't wait to hear what our guides say about this week's fishing.
Absolutely. Well, we have to say hi to Dave Farrell at the Yak Gear Workbench. And of course, he has a special guest joining him today.
Shaw? Very special guest.
Go for it. You introduce him.
We got Shaw Grigsby here with us today. He's going to tell us all about how to catch these bass that are transitioning from the summer to the fall.
Exactly. Fantastic. Well, welcome. I know, Dave, you got a lot of questions, but let's begin the weekend in the Fish Bites, a Middle Coast region where we're looking at higher tides and grass lines with Captain Bink Grimes. Help us navigate the weekend, Bink.
Hey, it feels like fall. North wind's been blowing for about a week. Surf and bays have been emerald green. Tides have been swollen from the Gulf storms that have pumped the new recruits of bait into the bays and back lakes. West Matagorda Bay has been good while wading trout along the south shoreline. Those toss and top waters have found bigger trout along the grass lines with these high tides. Half Moon Reef, Coon Island Reef, and reefs in Turtle Bay have been good on live shrimp under a popping cork. Then those reefs in East Matagorda Bay has been a player for a month. With those shrimp migrating through the bay, working those mid-bay reefs have been good on mirror sheep hooks and bass assassins while working the edges. The great thing about East Bay is you don't have to wade to find a big trout. Sure, you need weather for a good water color, but half of those big trout that we release all the time come from clients drifting over deep shell in about 5.5 foot of water. There's very few locales in Texas where you do that. In Puerto Cana, the reef in San Antonio Bay has been hot with these calm winds. Waders and boaters have found fish on the edges of the reef on live bait, soft plastics, and bass assassins. Rockport waders have found large trout on corkies and topwaters in the guts around Carlos and Mesquite Bay. Most of those fish are hanging around reefs and in sand and grass potholes, but the majority of the reefs on the majority of the fish caught on the Texas coast right now have been over shell. And Freeport anglers have found steady catches around the jetties while tossing live shrimp. Lots of sand trout have been found as well. Reefs in Bastrop Bay have paid off as well with these higher tides. That photo there, that's a catcher and proper release, and it's a vital part of our of a healthy speckled trout fishery. More Texans are doing it. It's pretty cool to catch and release. Redfish, man, these higher tides we got a storm out in the Gulf right now. Our tides are running about 2 foot above normal, and that's a boon for redfish. There's lots of shrimp in the back lakes and marshes, and many will target these fish on small topwaters and live shrimp with a mid-coast popping cork. Places in Matagorda like Cutoff Flats, Zipper and Bayou, Shell Island, Twin Islands are all players. Some of the largest redfish we found in the middle of East Matagorda Bay right now under birds. When things are really firing off in the fall, you'll see 10 to 20 different groups of birds working the bay. They're working over shrimp that are bound into the surface that are being pushed to the top by redfish. Many times it's gulls, but a lot of times if you find some terns circling, it's a sure sign of a redfish. Those fish begin to move to the bay. They're found on the grassy shorelines on the south side. Most of those will toss shrimp right against the edge of the grass. With these high tides, you've got to get your bait right along the edge of that grass because those shrimp are winding through that grass and trying to hide from these redfish. And we like throwing small topwaters like sheep pups and she dogs. Waders along the south shore line of West Matagorda Bay work the points with Little Johns and bass assassins. If you want both redfish and black drum, take a bucket of live shrimp, work the points with a cork. Just about every point's got a piece of shell on it, and man, it's just wonderful in September. Then at Rockport, the back lakes like Allen's Bight and the marshes of San Jose Island holding lots of redfish. Estes Flats are good on topwaters and imitation shrimp. tipped with fish bites and the fish bite shrimp. And then the jetties are all players right now. Mullet, crab, shrimp, that's the ticket. Offshore guide Michael Quebeca said those shrimp boats continue to be holding cobia. Grass lines are beginning to show more dorado and cobia. The swordfish bite has been consistent when you can get out there. We're going to have light winds and calm seas this weekend, and there's a lot of tarpon rolling on the beachfront. September may be our best tarpon month in Texas. We'll be teal hunting in the morning and fishing in the afternoons for the remainder of September. Teal season runs September 14th through the 29th. We want to thank our conservation groups like Ducks Unlimited for doing so much to grow baby ducks. This is just a great time of the year to do a cast and blast. We ask you to please continue to respect our bays. Please release more than you take. And please give catch and release a chance.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Little mention for Ducks Unlimited. We are grateful. It's time for the Mirror Lure Hotspots from the Middle Coast region. You know, Bink says that, guys, think about it. Trout, they're good while tossing bass assassins and mirror lures while wading the mid-bay reefs in East Matagorda Bay and San Antonio Bay. The redfish are solid at the jetties on crabs, mullet, and even maybe a shrimp, Bree.
Even maybe.
Even
All right.
maybe.
Well, now it's time to catch some numbers in the lower fresh region on Lake Travis, Decker, Choke Canyon, and the one and only Baby Falcon. What's going on, Matt?
Hi, Bray. Yeah, I'm just still at it like I do all the time. Let's get this report started. Brian Cotter has sent me some reports from the lakes around the Austin area. He says Lake Travis is fishing better. The fish are moving up a little bit with this cooling weather we got going on, but the bigger ones are still a bit offshore. Deep diving crankbaits, Texas rig, soft plastics, and jigs have been the ticket to catch those bigger fish out on the ledges. But early in the morning, you got a chance at a frog bite up there shallow in that new cover. So, I mean, that's always fun to get those explosions up shallow. Lake Bass Shop's fishing well. Look for bait fish on each side of the lake around the power plant. Those small swim baits, flukes, and shaky head trick worms around that bait where those fish are schooling. Great way to catch a lot of fish. Also, still a few schoolers around the dam. Throw you a weightless swim bait through it, just let it fall on slack line, and they tend to eat it as it falls through. Lake Decker is still fishing well. There's huge bait balls offshore. You want to target those on your electronics and throw small swim baits and crankbaits around the edges of them to catch a lot of numbers. If you care to fish shallow, the fluke-style baits and Texas rig worms have been producing really well on the points. Mike Bates did report for Choke Canyon. The lake level still falling very slowly, which is a South Texas theme right now. Callahan ramp is still open. Can't afford to lose much more water, but it still works. Early morning grass bite has still been the best bite going with the top water and swim baits. Most of those fish are in the 2 to 3 pound class. You can see the topped out grass is real shallow, but if you use your active target on your sonar, see the submerged clumps out away from it. Those clumps that are out front of the grass are holding a bunch of fish right now. Those are your main target. The other pattern that's working there is the brush piles. You want to throw a big Texas rig worm in those brush piles, and he says right now you're either going to catch a little bitty one or a great big one. There's not many in between, but that's a great way to catch you a big one at Choke Canyon. Falcon, the fish have been biting fairly well. We've dealt with an abnormally brutal north wind this week, which has limited what I can do. But fish are still relating to rock. There's a whole bunch of small bass, extremely shallow. Shaky head, plum apple finesse worms or square bill crankbaits have been the best for those shallow fish. And I mean, you can rack up a lot of numbers doing that. But the bigger fish are still out on rock in that 8 to 15 foot of water. Throwing bigger plastics and football jigs will trigger those strikes. I'm just really looking forward from some relief from the north wind so I can fish my most productive areas coming up. Got 3 pictures this week, and those all happen to be fish from Falcon. Got Jeff with a big old special, Lyle and Richard. I just like it when they all have smiles when they leave here.
Yeah, man. Looks like
They
some
always do, though, right?
pretty fishing conditions during those days we caught those pictures. All right, let's talk about the white bass and the hybrids, bub.
All right, the Falcon Lake white bass are schooling everywhere early in the morning on the shallow gravel bars and points. Follow the birds to the pot of the gold and load that boat. Small crankbaits and shad patterns are your best option. Lots of catching goes on when you can find those diving birds. Like Summerville, the white bass and hybrids are following bait on points and flats down towards the dam. Find them on your electronics. Throw bright-colored swim baits and slab spoons into them to trigger those bites. White bass and hybrid are always fun, pretty easy to catch, and create a lot of activity for you.
So, Matt, I got a question for you. What do you think's going to happen with this weather that's going by? How do you think we need to adjust that fishing down south?
You know, I hate to wish for a storm, but I wish it would have come further this way. We need the water. It didn't get close enough to me down south that it's going to change much. You know, we've had some clouds. We'll get our sunshine back, which will help trigger that bite. But one thing it has done lately, we've lost 10 degrees water temperature, and that's going to activate the fish, you know, a whole lot more toward the fall pattern.
All right, sounds like a good fun result. We appreciate all your hard work every week, bud. I'll tell Shaw you said hello. We're gonna go and take a look at the hot spots from the lower fresh region. Matt says his baby, Falcon Lake bass, continues to shine. To catch numbers, throw shaky heads with small plastics and less than 5 feet on the rock points. The bigger Falcon specials. Those big fish are in 8 to 12 feet of water. You want to throw a big 10-inch worm. Football jigs have been working best with those worms. What do you think, Bree?
I think we need to pray for some north wind relief from good old Matt down there.
Of course.
Absolutely. All right, the Star-Charm Middle Fresh region has your weekend fishing excursion all wrapped up with a bow tie to boot. But first, Dave and Shaw have a few lip grip and tidbits for y'all at the Yak Gear Workbench.
Am I grinning? I'm very happy to have Shaw here, man. He's always smiling, and now he's making me smile.
Oh, I can't wait.
Because he's here.
I
It's
can't
contagious.
wait. It is. We'll be
I'm
right
excited
back.
to be here. The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Ameritrail. Load, launch, relax. Fenwick. Feel everything. Bahio. Blue light blocking, radically clear polarized fishing sunglasses. Sportsman's Adventures with Captain Rick Murphy. 30 years of fishing for adventure. Berkeley. Your fish, our science. And Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats. Eat, sleep, fish.
All right, well, we're here at the Yak Gear Workbench, and we're talking about rigs and techniques, bass fishing with one of the best there ever was, Shaw Grigsby, member of the Bass Hall of Fame. He's going to tell us a little bit about the transition from fall to summer and beyond.
Right. You know, so summertime's right now, and you could hear Matt talk about it. Matt talked about the water temperatures cooling down, and as it cools down, these fish are going to move from those deep water spots, where you'll be throwing a crankbait like the 6XD, you're throwing it out there deep, and the big worms, you get out there on those brush piles. Well, they'll be moving from that back in the creeks and coves and the pockets because the shad are going to gang up there.
Right.
So then you want to use shad baits, lipless crankbaits, the topwater. My goodness, right now topwater's happening.
Right.
But it'll change from right now all the way to where it gets really good when they get on those shad. You'll see them schooling, busting shad, backs of pockets.
Like what kind of topwater are you talking about?
I love the walk the dog. Love the walk the dog. But you can use the ploppers, the poppers, all of them are really good. But walk the dogs are fun,
Right.
And when you get to the lipless baits, so as they move back in those pockets and they're on those shad, it doesn't seem like the big ones, the big lipless baits.
Even the little tiny ones, huh?
Exactly. You want the little quarter ounce, the little, half ounce is big, quarter ounce is perfect. So quarter ounce, and you will start mashing them. So it's just fun.
Well, that's what most of those little shads are right now, aren't they? They haven't got time to get big.
Exactly. So. And don't forget bladed jigs all the time, white spinner baits, anything that looks like a shad, your swim baits. I see you pulled out some swim baits here.
Right.
All those things, swim jigs, use the white ones.
Right. Is there ever a time when you go darker with them, or is it just?
There is, because, in between that, they eat everything from bluegill and crappie and stuff like that. So you can definitely use a darker one. It seems like if you have a real bright day, I don't mind moving down to a darker color. I don't like that real bright shine if you have cleaner water. Now, if you have stained and dirty water, and there's a lot of places in Texas where you have so much vegetation that it cleans the water. You got all this hydrilla and it filters the water. So in those cases, you know, I don't mind using a bluegill or a green pumpkin type color, and you can really catch them.
Right. Now, when you were talking about using that crankbait over there,
right?
And is that only during the summertime when those shad are up there, or?
No, this is deep. I mean, you got the 6XD, 8XD, 10XD. They get down real deep, and those are the deepest diving crankbaits, you know, that are made. So you can go down 25 foot on a cast of a crankbait. So that's pretty cool. And so you're ticking the tops of those brush piles and getting those big ones to come out of that brush and eat it. And it seems like a crankbait works plus the big worms. You use those big worms, and it's really good. You can Texas rig them, Carolina rig them. You get them over that brush and kind of work them slowly through the brush. And then when they get it, you hammer them and hang on, because you never know what you're going to get. Texas is a land of bigs.
Exactly. I see we brought a frog out because you said you wanted to bring a frog up. And you use these a lot too, huh?
Absolutely, and so that's a great top water you can use. I love the black or the white. So the white is representing shad, again, like a crippled shad on top, and you're just popping it, twitching it. You can work them. They kind of work like a you know, a top water. And so, but the cool thing about that, you put that on 65-pound braid. You go back in the brush. It's like you know, a 4-wheel drive. You're just like, you hook them and crank them through the brush and through the slop and through everything. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's my favorite thing to do is to fish on the top. But you know, for me, it's a lot different because, you know, I live in Florida, but when I go out there, everything seems to be so deep, and you know, they're doing all that live scope stuff now. Yeah, do you ever do some of that when you're out there?
Absolutely. So those forward-facing sonar is probably the single greatest thing to happen to fishing, in the sense of showing you, hey, there's a fish right there.
Right.
And then you can make that cast. Now, it's changed a lot of the baits we use. For the forward-facing sonar, we use swim baits. We use little minnows on jigs. So it's looking like the shad, because they're offshore most of the time. They're feeding on those shad. You'll see a fish just laying out there, and you can fire up on him, watch it come down. And one thing that I've learned is to use a lightest bait you can get by with. Okay. It seems like if it's falling too fast, they just kind of track, and then sometimes you catch them and sometimes you don't. If you can get it in front of them, let it lay out there, and then just kind of shake it a little bit, they just come up and suck that thing down. It's so fun to watch it all on the screen and watch it go down in real time.
Well, it can either be fun or the most maddening thing that I've ever. I spent 5 hours out there casting one day, just trying and trying and trying. And I was telling you before, the guide said, "Oh, that's perfect, that's perfect, that's perfect." And you see it's like it's bouncing off his head, but then he didn't eat it. So you know, it can be the best of times or the worst of times, in my opinion. Now, talk a little bit more about these swim jigs real quick.
So jigs and swim jigs, you know, jigs like the football jig, tremendous. I mean, this thing is tremendous for offshore, in the rocks. A little tough in brush piles, but it's still okay. You know, you can still bounce it into the brush and get it up and over it. So that's good while they're offshore. As it cools down, the swim jigs are going to be the deal.
And you're always going to probably have some little paddle tail on there of some
I put everything from a creature bait to a twin tail to a boot tail like that, all these different things on the back of my swim jig. And then you put it generally on about, well, you can put it on braid if you like, especially in Texas. Braid's pretty good because you've got big ones.
Right.
And you're going to throw it out there and just swim it back nice and steady. Same thing I do at this same time. You can take the big worms and that they have, you know, we have like a mag cutter and whatever this one exact. I apologize. I don't know this one, but it's the same basic principle, is that it's got this little tail that's kicks, and you put that probably an 1/8 ounce or 3/16 ounce bullet weight, and you start to swim that, right? And you just reel it, and they just boom, and they hit it, and then you just got to jack them up. And that's the same thing with a swim jig. You think a swim jig's any different? The only difference with a swim jig is you're going to swim it through the cover. It comes through most of it, but if you find a tree or a piece of brush or something, you can still pitch that thing in there and catch them. So you can vary that and get it as deep as you need.
Well, that was tremendous. Thank you very much, Shaw. It was great to have you here.
Bree, now you know why he's in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, I'm in awe of Shaw. I just can't.
In awe of Shaw.
In awe of Shaw. Well, let's see if we can use some of those tips in the Star-Tron Middle Fresh region, where Matt Losher is helping us with temperature change updates and finding those fish on Toledo Bend. Sam Rayburn and Richland Chambers. Take it away, Matt.
All right, I sure will. That's a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. Like you already alluded to, we've got some serious weather shakeups going on. You know, we had some cool weather. Then now we've got this storm upon us. So it's just up and down, lots of north and east wind to contend with, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. We're going to try to get you lined out on the largemouth bass, starting at Toledo Bend. The cooler air temperatures have got the water temperature all the way down into the low 80s now. The water level on the bend remains pretty stable, about 3.5 feet low, which is normal for this time of the year. The fish are slightly more scattered right now, which is good and bad. The bad, or maybe just not so good part about it, is that you may not be able to sit in one spot and just really load the boat. But you can catch bass almost any way you can think of right now, because you can catch them around docks, you can catch them in the shallow grass. We've got pretty good hydrilla in the lake right now. You can catch them on isolated wood cover, and you can catch them offshore in about 10 to 20 feet on break lines. So my approach this time of the year is to find a pattern that I like, fits my style of fishing, and I run with that. Personally, I like to start in the morning around that hydrilla grass that we've got now. Find those fish that are prowling outside around those edges of the grass and over the top of the grass while the sun is low. And then I work my way farther offshore later in the morning. Usually around 10 a.m. is when that morning bite has kind of died off. The sun's up high enough to put those fish stuck down back in the grass. You either have to go to punching into the grass or you can pull offshore. I like to pull offshore, and from about 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. is usually when that best offshore bite is, so that works out great because when the sun's high like that, those offshore fish position really well on those break lines in about 10 to 20 feet off the edge of the flats and on the long ridges, and they set up really good and feed. So just go fish however you like. It's a great thing right now. You can catch them so many different ways, docks, whatever. Just whatever you like, go do it and have some fun with it. I've got a photo here for you, and I'll admit to you, this one is different than most photos I send. This one came during a crappie trip. This young lady was with my dad on a crappie trip. They're on the pontoon boat, as you can see there. But I couldn't help but send that one in this weekend in the bass report because you can tell there she just had a blast catching that beautiful Toledo Bend bass.
Sure
big, healthy fish. So that just goes to show you those fish are out there around those crappie spots too. So they can just be caught anywhere right now.
All right, tell me about Sam Rayburn, Bub.
All right, jumping over to Rayburn. Same kind of deal with the water temperatures, dropped down into the low 80s. Water level has come down a few more inches, and I expect it to continue on a slow decline for the next few weeks, at least, unless we get some substantial rain. That water level should continue to come on down. The water level right now is kind of hanging right there around full pool, just a little bit less. And so what you've got with that water level and the weather we've been having, it lends itself to a really good offshore bite, but not necessarily a deep offshore bite because you still have a full lake. It's a lot lower than it was a few weeks ago when it was flooded, but it's still full. So you can still look up to the flats and the points near the main lake. You're going to want to stay close to the main lake, but you only have to be in about 5 all the way out to about 15 feet for success. As usual, the crankbait and the Carolina rig are really tough to beat on Rayburn, but I also love that Bass Assassin Little Tapper this time of year. It's a smaller, finesse-style, straight-tail worm. Really mimics those smaller shad they're feeding on right now. It's a small bait that gets overlooked, but it will put a lot of fish in the boat for you. So try that one, especially if the bite's tough for you. All right, now going up to Richland Chambers, last but not least. Mr. Thurman Selman up there with Bass Specialty Guide Service tells me that the bass on Chambers are still really enjoying the shade of those docks. He says particularly the ones closer to the deep water. And that's a typical late summer pattern, and it can produce some great results, especially for a skilled dock fisherman. He says that the bladed jigs, crankbaits, and the Bass Assassin finesse worms have all been working really well for that pattern. But he also mentioned that there has been some topwater action happening, and they're getting that on the popper-style baits, fished over the rock piles. And that action is mostly happening around Hickey Island. Look for those rock piles that are just barely submerged, or even if they're sticking out a little bit, work it around them. That's where that action is happening, so you can have some fun with that. Good luck out there this weekend.
All right, bud, thank you so much. We're going to go and take a look at the Rodan Marine Systems hotspots from the Middle Fresh region. Matt says this weekend you should go bass. They're cooperating well from the shallows to the deep, especially around the docks and the drop-offs in 5 to 15 feet of water. There is even some topwater action happening on them papas.
We're gonna go bassing?
We're going bassing.
Can't wait.
Maybe we get a big one.
Oh, that'd be nice.
All right.
All right, the Front Runner Boats Upper Coast and Upper Fresh regions are giving you the Fishing Forecast 101 when we come back. And remember to keep up with everything fishing in Texas. Scan that QR code on your screen to check out all of our social media pages, YouTube channel, Captain Rick Murphy, Why Isn't It Brie Gabrielle, and on the website you can purchase products you see right here on the show. We'll be right back.
What's that, Bree Gabrielle? What?
I don't know.
What did you sneak in there?
I don't know.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Berkeley, your fish, our science. Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com. Abyss Battery. Power your pursuit. Ducks Unlimited. Leader in wetlands conservation. Rodan. Set it, forget it, catch more fish. Berkeley Pro Spec Chrome. And Penn. Let the battle begin.
Truck, babe, I got the kids. Getting your boat on the water requires your full attention, and having a family with you is no easy task. That's why Power Pole is like having an extra set of hands, making a day on the water the best it could be with less stress and more time for fun with friends and family. Family fun made easy because of Power Pole, and that's your Power Pole tip of the week. In my opinion, that's one of the best Power Pole tips you've ever created.
No argument here, boys.
right,
Why don't you all send me an email and tell me what you all think? Should we be more Bree's Power Pole tips?
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, in the Front Runner Boats Upper Coast region, I opened that can of worms.
Yes,
Those shorelines in the morning is probably where you'll want to begin your day, but let's find out more with Captain Carl Weston. Carl, take us inshore, offshore, and beyond, sir.
All right, let's go. The black drumblade is steady here in the Upper Coast this week. Those water temps have bumped up to 84, 86 degrees over in Galveston Bay. And it pretty much holds true around in the surrounding areas. Those drum are working the shorelines right now leading out to the Gulf. The oyster flats are also a great choice right now in the mornings. They're drifting dead shrimp and cut shad right now on a slip rig. You know, a large dip net is a great idea when you're drum fishing. These fish can get pretty big, and if you're going to catch and release, this makes that whole unhooking process quick, easy. You know, Berkeley makes a wide range of fish nets to accommodate your needs. So, hey, let's get out there and not miss this hot fishing right now. This week is awesome. A picture today of that's a black drum on the left and a red drum on the right. They're both big.
Yeah, they are.
Very nice.
What else you got, Carl?
Oh, so let's talk about the reds also while we're there. That this year has just been amazing. You know, the fishing out front along the jetties for those slot-sized reds, the bigger bulls, is just a solid bite every day. Both live and artificial are working well. It's hard to choose a bait that doesn't work right now, Rick. Our favorites have been topwaters like the Berkeley Twitch baits, the power baits. Live bait remains the same, you know, shrimp or croaker on a popping cork or a slip rig. So those oyster flats seem to be holding big schools just east of the Texas City dikes. You can see the flocks of seagulls in the morning on the bait, and a bunch of anglers too. So live shad has been a great bait source for a lot of different species. Grab your cast set and get you some of that free bait. So the diving pelicans will always be your guide to those shad schools, and I've got a picture of one of those big bull reds here today with a young lady.
Nice.
Look at her go.
All right, what else? Let's go offshore.
Well, amberjack season, you know, the offshore weather's a bit hit and miss with those rainstorms, but we've gotten out there. The amberjacks, they're hungry, they're ready to fight, they're ready to fight the fall season. You know, we've seen some smaller fish in that 175 to 200 foot range, but some really big fish back east on those rigs in the 250, 300 foot area. I found most simple rigs that works the best is just a slip rig with a 200-pound mono. We use a 12 to 16 out sinker and a 12-aught trocar hook. Live hardtails cannot be beat for bait. The fish just love to kill these things. About halfway to the bottom, you'll see the school like we've talked about. You'll mark them. Now, that front runner will get you quick, and your Rodan will hold the spot, and the sore muscles are on you guys. So we got a picture of Leon, which Leon's a big guy, and that's a big fish.
Yeah, it certainly is. All right, one more to go. What do you got, bud?
Well, the kingfish are still being caught around the mid-range structure, out there in the 100-foot. A lot of smaller fish right now, which is good for, years to come. We need those smaller fish. Some bigger fish in the 180-foot plus on the bigger piles, big rock piles and stuff. Usually see bait pods, up current of the structure, and it's usually a giveaway that the kings are in there feeding. You'll see the bigger marks mixed in with the bait marking on your meter. And sometimes, like you talked about, Rick, you might have to run a small planer to get your bait a little deeper, a little faster, so you can catch some of these beautiful fish. I use a pan medium weight spinning combo. It's my favorite when it comes to kingfish. That fast retrieve on those reels allow you to keep the slack out of your line. And that's important when it comes to fish that like to jump. So, got a picture today of Mr. Reyes with a little king.
All right.
Hey,
thank you so much, Carl. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Upscale Glass Company hotspots. He says that, in short, black drum drift cut bait along the shorelines in 4 to 6 feet depths on a slip sinker rig, and then offshore amberjacks dropping live hardtails on the slip rig around the oil platforms and rock piles of 175 foot to 300 foot range for those AJs.
Hey, little or big doesn't matter as long as we're out there fishing and catching, right?
That's right. The smoker doesn't discriminate amongst
Smoker
size.
does not discriminate.
Amongst size.
I love it. All right, now we'll head into the Upper Fresh region with Mike McFarland, where we've got a few lakes on fire for you this weekend. So let's find out the details on Ray Hubbard, Bodark, Lavon, Fork, and Tawakoni. Please take it away, Mike.
Oh, you guys you're so fun. I wish I could be in studio this year.
We're so fun.
Yes, let's tell you about the bass fishing on Possum Kingdom with Pete Hernandez. The lake is 2.5 feet low, 80 to 82 degrees. It's stained to clear in the mid-lake and clear in the south end. The bass are transitioning from the deeper water to shallow as recoup trending. Rock crawlers and sexy shad crankbaits on main lake points and secondary points are your best bet. The shad are grouping up in the mouths of the main lake creeks, which is a good sign, kind of, that fall is around the corner. I expect some really good fishing out of Possum Kingdom here in the next few weeks. Athens with guide Jake Honor. It's about the same as last week. It's just not as fiery. The top water fury has kind of slowed down, but it remains basically the same. Schooling bass offshore in the main lake areas. Berkeley top waters like the Bullet Pop, for the Jaywalker. Bass Assassin's also working really well. I like the Vapor Shad. But you can target docks and grass and points and just kind of go fishing right now as we're cooling down a lot in Northeast Texas lakes. Ray Hubbard with Joe Shipley, same thing he said, has cooled a ton. And the water's still low there, about 2 feet. So those fish are up very shallow. Crankbaits, spinnerbaits, jigs on shallow points or structure, anywhere that you find that bait present. And here's a tip, bait sometimes can be hard to find, but birds usually get you warm. If you see those fish, bait-eating birds, you're warm. So, Bodark's back on the list. The offshore bite on Bodark has been really good. Jay Bonner says that the Texas rigs and jigs are key, but you got to use good electronics and scans of the fish. You got to find the fish. You can go flipping some trees and things like that, but the best thing is find some of that offshore structure and things, humps, points, old fence rows. If you can find some of those old fence rows that went underwater, those have been really good over there on Bodark. That's the bass fishing. And we've cooled down a lot. I really expect next report bass fishing to really be changed a lot, and we get Fork back in the picture. But moving on to crappie, Lake Lavon, Terry Thorne says no change. Light hand-tied jigs or minnows on laydowns or any type of hard structure 9 to 18 foot of water. Also, the brush piles in about 15 feet of water are working well for both crappie and brim. Then Jackie Wiggins says Lake Fork crappie, it continues to be hot even though we've cooled down and dropped a lot. We've dropped almost 10 degrees in Lake Fork. The big white crappie are showing out in the timber 18 to 28 feet. He's seeing a lot of the white crappie 14 to 22 feet. But again, things are really stacking up, and he's seeing that offshore stuff that you typically would this time of year in the trees. Minnows are best. Minnows are going to really always make it a little more simple to catch finicky fish. And then hand-tied jigs, of course, no particular colors right now. You just got to be on fish that want to bite. Talking about crappie that want to bite, Lake Bodark. First time we've talked about Bodark and crappie, and man, the fish are crazy there. They have never been fished for before. They've never been caught. It's a brand new lake. So if you can fish the timber or any brush structure in about 8 to 25 feet of water, 8 to 25 feet, fish the outside edges, and just go do a little homework there on that new lake. There's tons and tons and tons of fish that can be quickly put in the boat, fresh and easy to catch. And then here's Jackie Wiggins with some happy clients. Love these happy fish there. They're going to eat right there. It's yummy, yummy, yummy.
Happy with crappie. Loving it.
There you go.
So good.
Those are good eating. Moving on to dry birds. To Walkening, slowed down a lot because the lake's turning over. It's 87, was 87, and now it's about 80. Some schooling fish right at dusk where small slabs and hair jigs are working. And then here's Matt showing us off with that huge table of fish. Even though it's tough fishing, he still puts it together.
You're absolutely right. What do you got about catfish?
Catfish, now that's changed a lot. And we talked about chumming the trees, and for so many months now about the roosting birds, they've moved. The catfish are moving deeper in huge, huge numbers. Look around the timber along creek channels, Lake Fork especially, 18 to 28 feet. They're following the shad. You can still chum like we talked about using the cattle cubes, but the main thing is just getting that change from those roosting trees to those channels and creek channels. And channel catfish, though, easy to catch once you find a good area. So that's my report. Everything's pretty good. Cool down here. I expect the next report to be super hot for almost everything, especially the bass.
All right, bud. Thank you so much. We're going to go and take a look at the Ducks Unlimited hotspots in the upper fresh region. Mike says that Lake Bodark is back in the hot seat this week, offering incredible fishing to all the anglers. Big schools of largemouth bass are on the offshore structure. Pan-sized crappie are stacked in the trees and easy to catch. And guess what? The catfish, they're on fire also.
They're on fire. Well,
how about it?
Bodark almost took you for a ride there.
Almost.
I heard it almost did. It is spelled a little funny.
Yes.
Anyways, the Seasucker Lower Coast region has all sorts of options for us inshore and offshore when we return. But first, Dave is giving us shopping envy at the Yak Gear Workbench for Taco Marine new products. Safe.
Luckily, I don't have to go shopping. It all comes to me.
That's nice.
So we got some good stuff.
Got some good stuff
coffee
there.
and some offshore stuff.
Love it. We'll be back with the details.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Abu Garcia, Fish to Win, Fenwick, Feel Everything, Berkeley Pro Spec Chrome, Island Lures, Tournament Tackle, Seasucker, Easy on, easy off, incredibly strong. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a Miro Lure. Front Runner Boats, performance-built offshore fishing boats made in the USA. And Startron, start, run, and store with Startron.
Well, we're here at the Yak Gear Workbench, and it's time for the Taco Marine new products. And Dave, you and Shaw, you got this place all on fire over here on the workbench.
I'm still grinning about it. I really was so glad to have him here. It was awesome. But we're going to start off here with these Island Witches, from Island Lures. This is the brand new half-ounce Island Witch. You use these to dress up your ballyhoo or any of your offshore baits that you're trolling. I've used sea witches forever, and the ones I used were old drab sea witches. These things really will make your ballyhoo stand out with all that mylar and color on there and that big orange head, which I really like.
So question, technical.
Yes, sir.
When you put it on, is the ballyhoo coming in on this side so that it blows all
Correct.
this back?
Yes. Yeah.
So
the
this is
ballyhoo comes
laying
in the back, and all this stuff makes a big, nice billowing bubble around your ballyhoo.
An imitation of what it used to look like when Rick Murphy had hair. It'd just be flying
Well, there
everywhere
you go.
like this.
Yeah, those are made from all really good stuff. Got the natural eyes on there.
Beautiful.
Good mylar, which is always will make that ballyhoo stand
Oh my
out
God,
from
look
the
at this
crowd.
blue one.
That blue and white one there is awesome. Marlin will eat those things. King mackerel, dolphin, sailfish, everything will eat a ballyhoo with a sea witch on top of it. They come in half ounce and quarter ounce. They're 6.5 inches long. Those are all the new colors: the green and yellow, the purple
mahi.
crystal, the blue crystal,
Good
and the red
Lord, look
crystal.
at all that green.
Yeah, man.
Bree, if that doesn't make you want to go fishing, you're just simply dead.
Yeah.
Just go do something else. Go play your soccer. Go do whatever. Go to your cheerleading match, your swim match.
I love a witch, and those things are some of the best there are. So go to shopmirrorlure.com to get those.
All right, tell me about this Savage.
Well, that's a
swimming
Savage
shaft.
Gear 3D Shine Glide, and it's a slow sinking guide glide bait. That's kind of hard to say. And which are all the rage now for the guys trying to catch big bass. You know, a lot of these guys are throwing these monster baits. They come in 12 colors in a 1 ounce or 2 1/3 ounce. That is the 7 1/4 inch version. They also have that little 5 1/4 inch. Ultra realistic, you know, top quality paint on there to make them look like shad or a shiner. Really have nice hooks on there, big heavy hooks, so you don't have to change them out, because a big bass is going to eat that thing. A little bass will eat them too, unfortunately. Sometimes you'll catch a little bass on them, but when the big bass comes, you don't have to worry about your hooks pulling apart or anything. Great swimming action for a glide bait. So
I think there's a lot more than a bass would eat this. I think your
everything would eat that.
Big trout eat this.
Yeah, anything that'll eat a fish will eat that thing.
Yes.
SavageGear.com for that. Next, we have the Bahio sunglasses called these are the 12 South version. They were named after that North Carolina highway that goes out to the Outer Banks and connects all the islands.
Is this for the dudes, or is this, is this?
I think that's a unisex.
A unisex?
I think you could call that, yeah.
I think this is a multi-sex.
Yeah, they're a large fit, surf-inspired.
Look at this. That's multi-sex right there, baby.
It's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Large fit, surf-inspired style with a, you know, really bold, squared profile on there. High definition lenses with the patent pending
that's a
blue
bald
light.
Elvis, bro.
Okay. You can wear that at ICAST in Vegas. You'd fit right in. Unparalleled fish spotting, and keeps your eyes fresh and rested all day with that blue, you know, with that blue blocker, because that's what really makes your eyes tire out. Those have the narrow temples, and they got rubber tips on the end, so they hold onto your face and won't go flying off. Also rubber nose piece on there. You can get in glass or poly lenses. I always like the glass ones.
The best warranty in the business.
Good warranty. 3 frame colors and 7 lens colors. So you can go to BahioSunglasses.com to get you some of those Bahios.
Dave, speaking of bass,
yes,
Castaway Coffee has come out with the new bass.
Bass Kick and Blend. They call it the Bass Kick and Blend because, you know, you wake up and you'll go catch some bass, because that has 2 times the amount of caffeine in a regular cup of coffee. Smooth medium roast. They're official partner of Bass, BASS, Bass Angler Sportsman Society, and a portion of every bag sale goes to Bass. So their conservation efforts, you know, habitat conservation, invasive species, you know, responsible fishing practices and all that stuff. So it's a great company that does a lot for fishermen, and this is a really high bass kicking blend of potent coffee, and that's what.
Where do we go to find it?
CastawayCoffee.com.
Guys, you want to give back to bass fishing? Just go ahead and buy some Castaway coffee, and that's could be your way of doing it.
That's right.
Absolutely high octane version, and you're just killing me over here with cheerleading things and like multi-sex. I just can't with you over here. It's crazy. All right, the Sea Sucker Lower Coast region is full of action, and usually when we talk to Captain Chad Kinney live, he's reporting from fighting duty with doubles or triples on the line. So let's find out what he's up to this week. Wrap us up, Chad.
I tell you what, I'm about to head back out there, but we had a little bit of tropical weather come through and you know, stall things up. But the good thing on the flip side of that stuff, it missed the lower coast barely, which is good. And the long range forecast is perfect for the weather. So I always love September, October. I say it all the time. So fishing's gonna be on fire, and I'll get you a good report out there. We're going nonstop after this thing just passes right now, which will be right out there. So starting off with the inshore, the redfish, which is good. They're starting to move up in the east flats, and the trout are holding still in about 3 to 5 foot of water around grass beds and the edge of the cuts and the ICW. So talking about those redfish, we got miles and miles of flats down here in the lower coast, but head out on the east side there, look for some redfish up really shallow. Once you get closer to like the east cut or some other cuts that are going out into the Gulf there's some oysters through the years that are starting to pack up over there, so I want to get close, edge up to them and fish those areas also. So there's several ways to fish for them when they're up there. If you're using artificial lures, works great. Saltwater Assassin is perfect for that. Some paddle tails in that shallow water with a quick retrieve works the best way I find, and if not, you know, you can try bouncing off the bottom, but I think the quick retrieve works a little bit better. If you're fishing near the oysters, you know, don't get into them, but it's pretty shallow, but you're fishing near them, try some live bait on a Carolina rig, works really good, or put some fish bites on there, power pole down, throw the fish bites out there. Carolina rigs still do. Power pole down, and you can fish multiple lines around there and try to get them in the sand pockets right on the edge of the oysters and stuff right through there. If you're fishing right near the ICW, which isn't far from the oysters, it's right off the flat right there. So a lot of those fish, the best thing to do is when the tide starts dropping off those flats, hit those spots right through there next to the guts that go right into that east cut or any of the guts going out to the Gulf there. They're going to be falling off, and use the same techniques with the live bait or the fish bites, and those fish will be falling off from the flats in the deeper water. So we got a good picture here out of Port Mansfield. Got Captain Noah Sosa. He's been here forever, never used him before, but he's got a good picture of a good oversized red they released.
Nice.
So moving out to trout fishing, it's remaining really solid, 3 to 5 foot of water. We've been talking about that for a while, around sunken spoils, grass beds. Live bait still working really well, but right now, free line on the live bait, but the lure fishing is going to be picking up. It normally always does right now in September. It'll keep picking up here and through the winter. So right now, if you like throwing top waters, Berkeley J. Walker working really good early. Works better, especially with these good conditions coming up. We got some great conditions. We got some higher tides, but they're going to be falling out, which will pick up the bite, in my opinion. If not, if you don't want to throw the top waters or you're done, or you want to switch up a bit, then go to an Eagle Claw 1/8-ounce jig head with a saltwater sats and sea shad. Chicken on chain is really good right now, and Magic Grass is also my go-to. I just really like that color down here in the lower coast. Work the sand pockets, and jig it with a slow retrieve. Work those pockets, the edge of the grasses right there. Let that bait move through that water column. If you're fishing on the ICW, cast those oysters and stuff like that, then work the real edges of the grass beds and also throw it out into the deeper drop-offs, and then slowly jig it up and bounce it off the bottom through there. We've had some little bit of temperature drops, and those fish might start moving down a little bit lower. Remember, on the trout, it's 3 fish per person, 15 to 20 inch right now is the slot size, but there's some good numbers out there, and the trout look really healthy. So moving offshore, people every year, always call me. They think snapper season's over. It's not. State water's open. Fishing's really good. And in the same areas right now, it's really good, positive note. And there's plenty of kingfish out there. When you're done with your snapper fishing, they're around the same structure and bait balls that are starting to move in. So state water snapper fishing, pretty solid out there. The weather conditions can be great for it. I'm seeing like 1 to 2 foot seas coming up for the next 10 days, which can be excellent. If you have some currents after these storms we've had, if the current's really hitting or ripping, and you're moving too fast, and anchor down, using your Rodan trolling motor works perfect for that type of stuff. It gets your boat right in place. If you do have higher currents, then my best bet is to go with a double rig on basically a mono with a double rig, heavier weight, 12 to 16 ounce, whatever's going to get you to the bottom there. 12 to 13 ounce Eagle Claw circle hook works really good. Key thing is you got to get to the bottom and keep it there. Don't reel it up. Don't do anything else. It's just going to float up in the air and get you off the bite. Those fish can be holding down low tight. So if the currents aren't running that hard, if the currents aren't running as bad, and you see that's better, then the best thing to do is drift fish, and then try some Eagle Claw trocar jigs or some Savage squish jigs. Tip them with some fish bites, and then get those fish they'll be more suspended up in the middle of the water column, and you'll get a lot better bites on that. Remember, state waters reaches basically 9 nautical miles from the beach, so you can kind of figure out where you're at in your GPS there. And snappers 4 per person, 15-inch minimum, so you actually get double on the limit there in state waters versus the federal water. So moving out there, like I said, if you go out there snapper fishing, you hammer them, you get done, you want to have some fun afterwards with your buddies. There's plenty of kingfish action out there after the state water. What we've been trolling is a Savage max stick speed runners, and we troll them a little bit slower than normal, so we're trolling 6 to 7 knots. The shinier colors, anything with chrome, something that's flashy, works the best, especially when the sun's out. If you got a lot of overcast, it's really bad. The bite can be a little bit slower, so the shinier the better. And definitely rigged in with some wire leaders. Troll all over the structures you got right there. If you see some bait balls moving, troll through the bait balls. As far as tackle goes, and we're using the Penn torque reels. Works really good up to like a 16 wide Penn International. It's perfect size for this stuff, for this type of trolling. We spool it with the Berkeley Chrome 30-pound mono. Gives you a little bit of stretch when those fish hit so dang fast. It'll stick them, give them a little bit of stretch at your higher speeds there.
All right, thank you so much, Chad. We appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the lower coast hotspots. He says inshore, the redfish are showing up on the east side flats of the lower coast, with trout holding in 3 to 5 feet of water in the grass beds and sand pockets. Offshore, state water snapper fishing is open, and there is plenty of kingfish and state water snappers over the structure, and the color changes. So Mr. Grigsby. We appreciate you coming in and really teaching us why you're in the Hall of Fame. I'm so grateful for our relationship. Absolutely. You know, what do you think's the biggest mistake that people make in not catching the big fish their whole life? Quick, 20 seconds.
Quick. Okay, the quick would be, I really think it's a choice of your casting. So a lot of what we do is precision casting in structure for bass, and a lot of times they'll cast over here, out there, and sometimes they'll cast 10 times in a spot that doesn't even look good. So choosing a spot that really can hold them, something with cover, something that they can hide in, better
practice casting. We'll see you next week. Thanks for being here.